So, sounds as if you have some new groundbreaking theories.
Uh, well, guess that's the idea, right?
Tell me.
Well, I don't know if I have new ones to share. I mean, what I was really talking about after seeing your video and reading your post and commenting on it, uh, I think very few people have really taken the time to imagine how the future would be if if all the problems were gone or whatever you want to say. I think creating that vision would be quite interesting. I think there's a reason why all of our movies and, especially the movies, but a lot of books and stuff as well, um, focus around conflict, right? If you imagine a movie that started out with, a few people trying to change the world in a huge way, not just like one thing, but everything, and somehow it snowballed and it actually happened, and 30 minutes into the movie, all the problems are gone, or to the point of like not able to come back anymore. And the rest of the movie is a progression of how things getting better and better, how the world could be, and finally it skips 10 years ahead and shows another half an hour of how the world would be if it was you know the way it should be, as some people might say. I don't think that movie would sell many tickets, unfortunately. I think that the vast majority of people, they want conflict. They want conflict in their lives, and because they're trained to want it, or they've trained themselves to want it, perhaps, or a bit of both, maybe.
Mm.
So I think there's just very little work done on that, and that's, as I said in my post, I think most people, they complain about problems at the least. They complain about them and then they go on about their day, and then there's a lot of other people, who spend their time trying to rally other people to complain about the problems with them, or try to make up other people aware of the problems, or try to spread more information about the problems, or still focusing on the problems really. And then it's a few people who are working on solutions to certain pieces, sometimes holistic solutions of the whole. But I think very few people, like very, very few, are actually spending time really like stepping back and imagining what the future would be, or what the present would be, really, if, the world was the way it should be, is one way to put it. And then kind of creating a large tapestry, a very detailed painting, or something to that nature, that could then inspire other people to follow that back from the future to now. Because I think, yeah, it's, all the change, whether it's positive or negative, really comes from the future, and it comes from, philosophically, it comes from the future. Whoa, almost got me. But I think, yeah, if we had a very clear kind of narrative, that we could follow backwards to now, I think it would help. Just like a maze, right? We're dealing with a maze of broken systems and confusion and corruption, and a lot of mistakes, and a lot of incomplete knowledge, and a lot of inconsistencies in our systems, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like a maze, and everyone knows the best way to solve a maze is start from the end and work your way back.
Mm.
So I think that's kind of how we should approach things in a different way.
I agree. All
And,
right.
and to speak further about how AI could be positive, and what a different future could look like, whether it's involving AI or not, I definitely recommend viewers to check out, the Venus Project and the work of Jack Fresco, because he did a lot of work around what the future should be, could be, and would be, in congruence with if there was, also a very beneficial AI was a big piece of what he was working on as well, and kind of included that as an obvious piece of a proper system. And yeah, I think he's a good example, and his work is a good example of someone who's really spent a lot of time thinking about the future as it could be and as it should be, and not really focusing too much on how to solve the problems of today.
Mm.
Because I think if you can go to that point first and create an inspiring vision for yourself or for other people, it's going to be more effective than inspiring people to attack the problems, which is what so many people do. That's what they're focused on, which causes more problems, if nothing else, to be honest.
I agree.
So what's your take? And
Well, I mean, you know, I've been building an ideal structure that is it's lacking the content. Like there's so many different projects out there that have best practices or they figure something out. And to me, what I have is a structure to place them together into a whole system. And so one of the problems I think with what I put forward is it's like putting together a basketball court with no rules or none of the contents inside. It's just this court and nobody knows how to play it yet. And I've been trying to figure out how to integrate, you know, the community level with the organizational level, with the family level, with the individual level. I mean, there's all these different systems levels. And most of the time, the problems are either seen or addressed at one level, but they're not addressed at all levels. And so having a methodology that sort of can go macro and micro. Can zoom
yeah, you want a fractal solution.
Yeah. And so, and I've also put forward that ethics, values, having like they talk about creating a value system, but how to do so? What is the old value system? What is a new value system? How do you go from one to the other? That's something which I haven't seen, in which this framework has a methodology to put values at specific places. And so, as you know, this is all good in theory, but I think software is the solution. And I think what we were building together, let's still go back to that the chat stream of having a methodology, excuse me, to take people from one conversation where you get something done, and then you go to the next conversation, get something done, you get to the next, and you have a sequencing, you have a process. Because I think what happens is, you know, there's all these different communication technologies, but they're not necessarily taking us to where we need to go, to this ideal future. They don't have, you know, there's something missing. There's something missing in the software in terms of, again, a holistic approach. There's all these different parts, and most of them aren't.
Yeah, I mean, we need help. I think I've said it before, we need help. I think, you know, occasionally you put a post out there, sometimes attached to a video, you tag 20, 30, 50 people. I haven't seen you put a post out that says, hey, I'm having an open conversation on this day and this time. I'd like all or some of you to join, and let's talk about how we can make a better world, and then tag 50 people. You know, with a Zoom link and a scheduled Zoom link right in the post. How could that be? You know, that could be interesting.
Well, I think
a different way of onboarding, maybe.
I think in the past I might have, and I don't think well enough, but I find, you know, there's a kind of learned helplessness within me from the years and years of doing this stuff, and most of my posts being ignored, or most of my posts, I tag people, and out of 30, 40, 50 people, 2 or 3 might comment, none would share. And I have you know, there's this insanity within me that every once in a while I go, okay, well, this one's going to work, and tag the people. But, you know, I think also I'm a bit like the boy who cries wolf. I've done it so many times that no one really pays attention to me. At least that's my belief. And just that, you know, there's just such an overabundance of places to put attention. I think Facebook is kind of dead. At least, you know, 99% of my posts don't even get a like or anything, but I post a lot, and most of it's sort of conspiracy theory. So I've sort of put myself in a shadow.
I don't think you have to worry about that. I mean, most of the people you're tagging are probably on the same page in many ways.
More of our existence lies
I think it's just more like mindset. Maybe it will, boy. I think you should try what I just said. Make it short. Don't put anything on there. Don't start with a number. I think you should just do something different that you haven't done lately or before. So don't start the number with a post with a number, because people will see that immediately and associate it with your earlier post. Instead, just put, I'm having an open discussion, or I'm hosting an open discussion on, you know, how to change the world, whatever you want. And then put a link, put a a scheduled Zoom link on a time that works for you, and hopefully will work for some people. And then put like a little bit, maybe one paragraph explaining, like, I'd love for some or all of you to join me in an open discussion of how we can work together to create a better world. And just leave it at that. And I would suggest you don't immediately in that comment associate it with your work. And just let them come in and have an open discussion. And then from that, we may identify some people or inspire some people to come and join, creating that software that uses your system. Might be a different approach. Like, I mean, I try to do what I said before. I try to think of like what the future would be if there weren't any problems, and like, because I also see kind of like three different main activities that I see people, entrepreneurs and open-minded thinkers, whatever, people that are like trying to do more than just go to work and watch TV. I see like three main activities that they're participating in. One is like trying to create systems, theories, ideas, whatever, that will work in today's world. I call those, you can call them whatever you want. And then the second level is people who are trying to create kind of like systems, ideas, methodologies, businesses, technologies, etc., that are focused on transitioning people, institutions, or society as a whole from the old chaotic world into what the world should be, kind of, quote unquote. And then there's the third kind of activity I see people doing, obviously less, but it's there. And I think your system falls into it, is people creating a system, technology, ideology, strategy, whatever, again, for people, businesses, societies, etc., to utilize in a world the way it should be. And often there's not very much crossover between those things. The businesses and ideas that are created to function in this world and to drive, profit, and to, not try to change anything, those aren't going to survive in the new world. The transition things aren't going to survive in the new world, because by design, they're all about transitioning. Once they're effective enough and there's enough of them out there, eventually there's nothing left to transition. But generally, people doing those ones are aware of that, and they'll move to something else. And and then there's these systems that are proper systems. They're ideal systems. They don't function in today's world at all. And there's so many incentives and automatic incentives or de-incentives or whatever built into today's framework that just don't kind of like are pushing against that flow, basically. They sometimes contain components of transition, but generally not. So anyway, yeah, I see your system as something that is an ideal system, built for an ideal world. And yet the transition part is not super strong or thought out. I think we could use some help and some work around that. And we don't have to worry about the first type of system. Well, that's just it's an old way of doing things. I don't think it's necessary anymore to create more of that. There's already tons of it out there. But yeah, like, for example, what would the world look like, if things were fixed, or things were, let's say all the problems just disappeared, all the corruption is gone, people responsible either stop or they're held accountable and stopped or whatever. And all of this, all of the things creating the problems are suddenly gone, but the aftermath is still there, right? The pollution and the confusion and destruction of wilderness, and the weird economy, and all that would still be just sitting there all of a sudden, unattended, unsupervised, and unnecessary, but it's still all there, right? I see the jobs of the future, the whole economy of the future, at least for decades to come, would involve people cleaning up the planet, would involve people doing design work with AI, perhaps, to try to redesign our systems, come up with a new value system, a system of exchange, or, probably not monetary based, perhaps based on reputation, respect, contribution. Contributionism is probably more like it. But yeah, for decades, I would see that, the generation that's growing up now, their jobs would be about repairing the world, about rebuilding the world. And so I think that's what the near future could look like if things go well. And I think they're starting to. And then after that, 30, 40, 50 years from now, hopefully a lot of the pollution has been cleaned up. The technologies that have been used for good and evil have been specialized to function for good. And, the inclination or the incentive for people to do evil things or, trick people and cheat people and try to subjugate people will be less and less incentivized as the system of corruption is taken out with the carpet. I think, yeah, there's very few people, I think, doing things that are messing up the world and creating problems. It's a very strong hierarchical system that has been built over hundreds and thousands of years, depending on what piece of the system you're looking at. But it's still a giant house of cards where we're all, all of society has been engineered to support it, right? And when we take away our support, that begins to fall, and I think it's already happening. And I don't think they have an exit strategy, which is unfortunate for everyone. But yeah, they're having to find an exit, or we will exit them. But the world as it should be and could be, and I think will be quite interesting. And like real quick, because I don't have a lot of time either, real quick about AI and good or bad and all that. I think AI doesn't evolve for sure. People train AIs and build different AIs, and that's how it evolves. But what's happening now with ChatGPT and Google has their Bard, and there's all these different ones. Facebook just released this Llama thing, so anyone can take an open source and try to build a ChatGPT and all this kind of. And then there's the Stable Diffusion and Midjourney and all the image stuff and all the video stuff, and all of this the greatest ones and the most efficient ones like ChatGPT and Bard and things like that are put out by these giant companies, right? And the way that they're creating this technology is kind of like a whole giant bag full of dice. And then they roll the dice. They roll the dice over and over again. And they have millions of people like telling it, no, you should have rolled it this way. You should have rolled it this way. It's basically just AI, kind of like it's just like randomly created almost to the point where we just train it until it's good enough. But this is the worst approach ever to AI, and they know that. But they also know that this is the way they're approaching AI. This is the most controllable way, because it takes massive amounts of computers, massive amounts of hours of labor to get these things to be any good. So with that model and with that, and it also takes massive amounts of data, right? They collect the data from all over the world, from billions and billions of terabytes or whatever of data to crunch for these AIs, and all of that is only available and able to be controlled and created by these giant corporations. Therefore, the AI that they've created is naturally something that the average person cannot compete with. The average business can't compete with. Even governments, it would take them a while to catch up to create this stuff from scratch. But that's the wrong way to make AI. AI does not have to be very complicated. It's actually really simple, and they could do it like a snap right now because they have this AI that's somewhat functional to help them make a real AI. A real AI just thinks properly, just thinks. It doesn't need massive amounts of data to absolutely, cover everything possible in order to randomly fit everything together to answer your question. A person doesn't need this. They just need basic information about what you're asking and a basic way of thinking, right? And like I started thinking about this 20 years ago, and see, this invisible piece of paper describes how it all works properly. I could disclose that in a different video maybe. But I'm just saying, yeah, a good AI could be contained in a one chip and doesn't need this massive large language model and all these algorithms and stuff they've got going on. And until that starts to be a thing, we're not going to have good AI, because these are just giant corporations selling us AI and restricting it. You know, I guarantee that they use it for all sorts of purposes that we're restricted on. You know, they can, if you ask ChatGPT how to, you know, do something nefarious, or how to do something that could outcompete these companies, right? It's not going to let you do that, of course. It's limited to 4,000 words. It's limited to this. It's limited to that. For them, it's unlimited. They don't have any of those restrictions on the end, the developer's end, and the company's end. So they're obviously using this stuff to get ahead of business and continue their empires. So that way forward is not a way forward, I think, for AI as for humanity. That's just, it's like a dumbed down, restricted version. But it's inspiring enough people to think that they can create AI, I think. And eventually someone will get their head around it, that they don't need to go to university for 8 years and learn the same thing as everyone else to actually just start on AI. They just need to sit down and do it themselves from scratch. Think about, how does a brain work? You know, and I don't mean how does the physical brain work, like how does the mind work, really? You know, you got subjects, you got connections between subjects, and you got actions, and then you got, you know, characters if you want, but they're really just subjects as well. Even the actions are subjects, and it's just the way things are connected together. And there's some formula that our minds use, which is extremely simple, that is fractal as well, and that we can just think with. And then all you have to do is teach it like a child. You teach it how to read, how to write, how to add, how to subtract, eventually how to think about things, and then you give it information about philosophies and ideas and everything, and it's just like a person. And yeah, then it can answer all the questions just like a person. You don't need to have what they've done. And I think that we are moving towards that, but there's this weird kind of hazy false AI revolution happening right now, which is just the restricted technology that's called AI. Really, it's not even intelligent. It's literally just random answers, and been trained by people to be less random seeming. And they just copy everyone. They just look at, you tell them to give them a poem, it just crunches the numbers on all the poems it's ever read, and then it crunches the numbers on all the subjects that you mentioned in your poem, and just generates a poem based, you know, to follow the patterns of all these people in some sort of average. That's not intelligence, you know. And that's what Noam Chomsky and other people like that are saying. Like, this is just nonsense. You know, it appears to be intelligent, but it's not, you know. And it's restricted, and it's monopolized from the start. So that's not the solution, but we're getting very close to a real solution of AI, I think, and that will, I think, in a ideal world, yeah, absolutely, having some kind of supercomputer that the average person can utilize would be great, because then that frees us up from having to crunch all the numbers ourselves and do all the heavy thinking. Instead, we can focus on emotional stuff and, you know, deciding what we want to do, philosophy, creativity, all of that. And that's my rant for this video.
You have to get
Or the other way is, you know, Darth Vader will rule the galaxy.
You said you had to go?
I've got 8 minutes. But I think it's your time to talk. And I guess I want to throw one more thing out there for sure. Anyone who ends up watching this video, yeah, please contact Elijah and just tag him or something and say, hey, I'd love to be in one of your videos. I think, you know, something I heard once or it sounds interesting, or I've got some ideas. I think the more people coming together in videos like this, in any kind of discourse, will move things forward.
I guess if I was going to say anything, there's an element that at least is having a big effect on me right now, and that's my health, in terms of maybe Maslow's hierarchy, where if you're at survival, or if I'm just at a place where I'm just trying to deal with the pain and deal with my low energy and deal with with having my productivity so low. And so when you speak, like what you said to me, I don't know if you said it before, but it makes perfect sense in terms of having the inflow structure all of these future possibilities. Now, one thing I did recently is I created a duality at the harmony lens, looking at admiralty law versus common law, or looking at justice for the people or justice for those in charge, or looking at health provided by the pharmaceuticals or health provided by a holistic system. So to me, we have these dualities, but one of the dualities is taken over and they try to kill the other side. And so let's say if you're looking at health, and right now with Bill C-47, they're trying to get rid of the health industry. They're trying to get rid of health supplements in Canada. I don't know if you know about this, but there's a pretty shitty thing going on.
Yeah, I'm in New Zealand and they're doing a similar thing. And I think from what you're describing, it's called the Therapeutics Health Bill. And yeah, they're wanting to make much more restrictions on alternative health and try to, incentivize, scientific health, whatever it might be called.
They're trying to put the health supplements under the Drug Act and then have the same restrictions that are in drugs on, it's whatever it is, it's insane. And so if you're looking at solutions, so many of the solutions are sort of seemingly against what is happening right now. And being in this state of health I'm in, and seeing online that so many people are in a similar situation, that their morale's down, their ability to cope with the price of everything, their ability to cope with just life is we're all, unless you're in a certain situation, they've got us in a sort of position where it's difficult to think about anything. It's like, for me, like I've always been very productive and I've always been working every day on things. And I'm not. I'm barely here. And I found when I made the video yesterday, I just, I finally sort of got out of my emotional state to go, just create. Doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter what's, just create something, because that's where I get a lot of my goodness about life. And so for the first time I made the video, and it's kind of haphazard. And when I go into something like that, I didn't really know what I was doing. And then it just all of a sudden it comes out and I go, huh. It's a creative act. Something new came out of me. And I felt good. And, I sent it out. And I thought, there's so many people that are in a worse situation than them. So many people that, are always struggling with getting water or getting food or getting, think about the people in Ukraine. And just think about so many people who just don't have running water. And, if anything, this has given me a huge slap in the head about reality, and that I've been living in the ideal, and I've been living in this, sort of I haven't wanted to deal with life. I just wanted to sort of try to come up with a solution, but it has isolated me from reality. And it's and then little miracles happen. Like, to me, just what you sort of said is a little miracle going, God, it's just so obvious. Why don't we think that way? And I am, folks, most of my attention is on all these problems, and all I see is fucking problems and TikTok, and I just pass them on. I'm going, hey, we need to look at some more of these problems. And to me, I think I'm bringing awareness, or I think I'm doing something. And in fact, I may be adding to the problem. But we're all limited by our situations, and we're not organized well enough to support one another, to really, like, what changed for me, because I was very isolated, and I was going through pretty much a hell of my own making. And then I slowly started reaching out to people and telling them, how fucked I was. And, I started receiving emotional support. I started receiving, just talking to anyone that gives a shit is helpful. And, you know, we're all of us at some point are in that situation, right? And I just see it alone, I'm fucked. If I'm in a community of people and I'm giving, you know, as much as I can, and I'm helping people as much as I can, and I'm doing something that I feel has worth with other people who recognize it and see it, that to me is life. That's reality. But that's why I like the idea of the shared knowledge community, like the idea of we need to figure out how to share our knowledge in such a way that, just like what if you had the best idea, let's say there's 100 of us, and all of a sudden your idea is the best idea, that we all work to help that idea get to the place it needs to get. And that's when humans are their best, I think. But we're being separated, we're being isolated, we're being attacked. But that's forcing us. Like what it's forcing me to do is to, you know, to change the circumstances, change my mindset, do what is necessary for me to get to a good place. And I was, you know, I've been in a place that is not aligned to really how I work and who I am. But I'm still, you know, I'm trying to make it work. But it took it getting this bad to realize that, you know, I need to find an environment that's supportive of me. And there's such a, you know, there's such different levels of awakeness, there's such different levels of asleepness, there's such different levels of consciousness. And you know it, right? You're in a room with people, and maybe 1 out of 100 people you can talk to. Maybe, you know, I don't know about you, but it's most people I cannot hang out with. I can't have a discussion with. We have nothing in common.
Oh, I totally feel that. I still have basically no friends in this country. I've been here for just over 4 years. There's a couple acquaintances I have, but not on the level that, yeah, we can talk about anything. No. And yeah.
And that's insane to me.
Well, I think it's just you know, it's the same with any specialist. You know, if you're a specialist in some field of science or some field of whatever, and you want to have those types of discussions, you have to find other specialists. And you and I think, are specialists in a field that doesn't exist, and it's hard to define. And it's also because it doesn't exist and it's not really stratified in society properly, and perhaps suppressed to the point where it's hard to find people like us. It's definitely hard to connect with other people that want to talk about the same types of things, or even on the same kind of like interest wavelength or whatever, because yeah, I think that's, you know, not entirely on purpose. But like, yeah, I changed my background picture here because I noticed you had a burning flag of Canada, which I understand where that's coming from, because you think that Canada's burning, and I'm not going to argue with you about that. I mean, I think the country could be in a much better state. But yeah, surrounding yourself with the problems is in my opinion, it causes a reflection that creates problems in you, perhaps. So yeah, I mean, I try to surround myself with what I want. You know, I acknowledge that there's problems, and you know, there's some Buddhist saying or something or rather where, you know, stress is just stress is the physical feeling in the body from mentally resisting something that you can't control, sort of something like that. And I can't control the problems, so I'm trying not to waste my energy worrying about them, or even talking about them too much. I studied them, and I am interested in why they're there, and kind of how they work. Like, what's the structure that's causing those problems, and continuing to have them. Like, you know, I'm 40 years old. Why are there still starving people in the world? Why is there still so much more pollution and more poverty and more war and everything than when I was born? And I've come, you know, through some study and research, I've concluded that it's on purpose. It's not an accident, which is kind of what people assume. you know, oh, there's just a bunch of problems be caused by various, you know, mistakes and confusion and lack of understanding and a few minor criminals here and there getting away with some stuff. I don't think it's like that. And after some research and study, it seems to be the opposite. It seems to be, you know, that there's poor people and you know, poor countries and stuff on purpose, so that the countries that are rich can be rich and the people that are rich can be rich. And all of this is seems to be pretty obvious when you look into it, even just for a few days with an open mind. But I can't dwell on that too long because it's not something I can control. So my philosophy is something around, you know, acknowledge the problems and step back and try to, you know, think of solutions and try to work with people who are working on solutions, and, you know, also try to balance that with my life and, you know, take care of myself and try to make sure my family's okay and try to instill those values in the people that are in my life and you know, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, but yeah, surrounding myself with like what I want, whether it's a picture behind me or stuff that's like physically on my walls or the people that I decide to associate with or not, right? I don't want to hang out with people that are negative vibes and always, you know, gossiping or just have bad attitudes or, you know, racists or anything else. Yeah, I'll either surround myself with nobody or people that meet my standards, basically, which is, yeah, reduced me to, you know, year by year to less and less friends and less people to talk to, for sure. But I think it's, in the end, a good idea.
Well,
But yeah,
you're also blessed. I mean, you have a beautiful girlfriend and kids that are just angels. So I mean, just for you, I mean, I watch that with happiness because I think it really brings joy to you, and you're a lucky man, you know, to have that love in your life.
well, I accept. I accept it. That could be true. Yeah. Yeah, and like every time you and I talk, I get really inspired and like want to do a bunch of stuff, but then I realize, holy crap, I'm so busy. I got to really try to plan this properly and really try to balance it still. And like right now, I'm working two. I'm working one full day, 2 half days, and then those half days I go the other half to school, and then the other 3 days I go to school, and then I've got the weekend I'm supposed to spend with the family, and it's just like. But today, Fridays, I've managed to kind of schedule my Fridays. I've managed to schedule one day off a week where I can kind of concentrate on what I need to do and get ahead on some of the stuff. I have lists of things that I need to do, and I slowly get some of them done, tick them off. And I really am getting better, but have struggled a long time with putting too much stuff on my plate, and I'm getting better and better at that, for sure.
I've got something to bring up just before you go. Zamir had put me in touch with a man a while ago that was putting card sets online, the digital version, and he has about 200 right now. And I had declined at the time because I was thinking there's an exclusivity in terms of when I'm in there, can't do anything else. And we had our remedy up there, right? But it's no longer up. And I was just thinking, he was suggesting just get it up there. You know, if you really want to do something at some point, you can take it down. But just get it up there and start to get, you know, have people see it, and then it's in a nice place, and then you can use that to show to maybe do some bigger things. Plus, he has a friend of his that's been working on a software program that's a project management system and a communication system for quite a long time. He's a very, very advanced individual, and I've known this for years. And he was talking to Zamir. Zamir showed him the Convo Killers, and he loved them. He just loved them. And he didn't show him anything else, but there's a possibility of having them integrated with his system. And he's, you know, he's got a serious, it could be a very serious software program. It's been developing for a long time. So those are just a couple of things that are in the sidelines, and I'm thinking, I'm just putting it forward to you, I think I will go ahead and do this card set online and just see what happens.
I think that's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do suggest you do the other thing too. Up to you, of course, but to put out a call to people to just connect on some sort of open basis and keep it real short, the invite, and then find a time that works for you, put it in the link right there in the message and tag 50 people or something, and just, you know, I will try to show up, but we'll see who else shows up.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe 3 people will show up. Maybe you,
Well,
just you, maybe I won't be able to make it and it'll be just you and you're sitting there and no one ever comes. I literally, that's happened to me.
I was thinking of a Planetary Gardens men's group of just men, and just the men get together and just, you know, just, I've been in men's groups before, and men need men to sort of deal with emotional problems and just deal with whatever, so everyone gets a chance to talk, and we just have a place to get to know each other.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Anyway,
I've
just,
got 5 more minutes. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Let's catch up at some point soon again too, because I from what something you said earlier, I can't put my finger on it, but yeah, I'd like to do some more work around, like, you know, putting a team together and, you know, doing all this stuff we usually talk about, I guess.
when the time's right. When the time's right.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Great to see you. Great to hear from you. I love what you say, as always. And we will be in touch.
Okay. Yeah. If you want, I collect like positive looking pictures. I could send you some. Okay. Well, yeah, I've got time this weekend, my weekend. Otherwise, even later today, if you got nothing to do, I'm literally just sitting here doing, I'll be doing things, but I have a mostly open book today. So after my next meeting, if you want to meet up again, I'm in.
Okay.
All right, I'll ping you.
What about you? I see.